What's going on, everybody? I know Hangout stream won the thingy, but I want to read it regardless. So we read it instead. Chapter 3, The Night Bus. Harry was several streets away before he collapsed onto a low wall of Magnolia Crescent, panting from the effort of dragging his trunk. He sat quite still, anger still surging through him, listening to the frantic thumping of his heart. What up, Brady? After 10 minutes alone in the dark street, a new emotion overtook him: panic. Whichever way he looked at it, he had never been in a worse fix. He was stranded, quite alone, in the dark mug world, with absolutely nowhere to go. And the worst of it was he had just done serious magic, which meant he was almost certainly expelled from Hogwarts. He had broken the decree for the restriction of underage wizardry so badly, he was surprised. Appreciate it, Randy. He was surprised mystery magical representatives weren't swooping down on him where he sat. Harry shivered and looked up and down Magnolia Crescent. What was going to happen to him? Would he be arrested? Or would he simply be outlawed from the wizarding world? He thought of Ron and Hermione, and his heart sank even lower. Harry was sure that, criminal or not, Ron and Hermione would want to help him now. But they were both abroad, and with Hedwig gone, he had no means of contacting them. He didn't have any muggle money either. There was a little wizard gold in the money bag at the bottom of his trunk, but the rest of his fortune his parents had left him was stored in a vault at Gringotts Wizarding Bank in London. He'd never be able to drag his trunk all the way to London, unless he looked down at his wand, which he was still clutching in his hand. If he was ready to expel, his heart clutching. His heart, his heart, now thumping painfully fast. A bit more magic couldn't hurt. He had the invisibility cloak he had inherited from his father. What if he bewitched the trunk to make it feather light, tied it to his broomstick, covered himself in the cloak, and flew to London? Then he could get the rest of his money out of his vault and begin his life as an outcast. It was a horrible prospect. But he couldn't sit on this wall forever, or he'd find himself trying to explain to a muggle police why he was out in the dead of night with a trunk full of spell books and a broomstick. Harry opened his trunk again and pushed the contents aside, looking for the invisibility cloak. But before he had found it, he straightened up suddenly, looking around him once more. A funny prickling on the back of his neck had made Harry feel like he was being watched, but the street seemed to appear to be deserted, and no light shone from any of the large square houses. He bent over his trunk again, but almost immediately stood up once more, his hand clenched on his wand. He had sensed rather than heard it. Someone, or something, was standing in the narrow gap between the garage and the fence behind him. Harry squinted at the black hall alleyway. If only it would move. Then he'd know whether it was just a stray cat or something else. Excuse me. Lumos, Harry muttered, and a light appeared at the end of the wand, almost dazzling him. He held it high over his head, and the pebble dashed walls of number 2 suddenly sparkled. The garage door gleamed, and between them, Harry saw, quite distinctly, the hulking outline of something very big, with wide, gleaming eyes. Harry stepped backward, His legs hit his trunk and he tripped. His wand flew out of his hand as he flung out on him to break his fall, and he landed hard in the gutter. There was a deafening bang, and Harry threw up his hands to shield his eyes against the sudden blinding light. With a yell, he rolled back onto the pavement just in time. A second later, a gigantic pair of wheels and headlights screeched to a halt, exactly where Harry had just been lying. They belonged, as Harry saw when he raised his head, to a triple-decker, violently purple bus, which had appeared out of thin air. Gold lettering over the windshield spelled "The Night Bus." For a split second, Harry wondered if he had been knocked silly by his fall. The conductor in a purple uniform leapt out of the bus and began to speak loudly to the night. "Welcome to the night bus. Emergency transport for the stranded witch or wizard. Just stick out your one hand, step on board, and we can take you anywhere you want to go. My name is Stan Shumpack, and I will be your conductor this evening." The conductor stopped abruptly. He had just caught sight of Harry, who was still sitting on the ground. Harry snatched up his wand again and scrambled to his feet. Close up, he seen that Stan Shumpike was only a few years older than he was, 18 or 19 at most, with large protruding ears and quite a few pimples. What are you doing down there?" said Stan, dropping his professional manner. "Fell over," Harry said. "What you fell over for?" sniggered Stan. "Didn't do it on purpose," said Harry, annoyed. One of the knees in his jeans was torn, and his hand he had thrown out to break his fall was bleeding. He suddenly remembered why he had fallen over. He turned around quickly to stare at the alley between the garage and the fence. The night's bus headlamps were flooding with light, and it was empty. "What you looking at?" said Stan. "There was a big black thing," said Harry, pointing uncertainly into the gap. "Like a dog, but massive." He looked around at Stan, whose mouth was slightly open. Was he feeling of unease? Harry saw Stan's eyes move to the scar on his forehead. "What's that on your head?" said Stan abruptly. "Nothing," said Harry quickly, flattening his hair over his scar. But the Ministry of Magic was looking for him. He didn't want to make it too easy for them. "What's your name?" Stan persisted. "No Longbottom," said Harry, saying the first name that came to his head. So this bus," he went on quickly, hoping to distract Stan. "Did you say it goes anywhere?" "Yep," said Stan proudly. "Anywhere you'd like, along the town line. Can't do nothing against no other, here," he said, looking suspicious again. "You did flag us down, didn't you? Stuck out your arm on, and didn't you?" "Yes," said Harry quickly. "Listen, how much would it be to get to London?" 11 sickles," said Stan. "But for you, but for 15, what's my spot?" Yeah, you want me open here, Chip? Yeah. 11 sickles, but for 50, for 14, you get one. Get a chocolate, and for 15, you get a hot water bottle or a toothbrush in the color of your choice. Harry rummaged once more in his trunk, extracted his money bag, and shoved some silver into Stan's hand. He and Stan then lifted his trunk, with Hedwig's cage balanced on top, up the steps of the bus. There were no seats. Instead, half a dozen brass bedsteads stood bedside the curtained windows. Candles were burning in brackets beside each bed, illuminating the wood-paneled walls. A tiny wizard in a nightcap at the rear of the bus muttered, "Not now, thanks. I'm pickling some slabs," and rolled over in sleep. "You have this one," Sam whispered, shoving Harry's trunk under the bed right behind the driver, who was sitting in an armchair in front of the steering wheel. "This is our journey. This is our driver. Ernie Prang. This is Neville Longbottom, Ernie Prang, an elderly wizard wearing very thick glasses, nodded to Harry, who nervously flattened his bangs again and sat down on his bed. "Take care where you are," said Stan, sitting down on the armchair next to Ernie's. There was another tremendous bang, and the next moment, Harry found himself on the bed, thrown backward by the speed of the night bus. Pulling himself up, Harry stared out the dark window and saw that they were now bowling along a completely different street. Stan was watching Harry's stunned face with great enjoyment. "This is where we was before you flagged us down," he said. "There we are. Someone Wales." "Arr," said Harry. "How come the muggles don't hear the bus?" said Harry. "Them," said Stan contemptuously. "Don't listen properly, them, do they? Don't look properly neither. Never notice nothing, they don't." "Best go wake up Madam Marsh, Stan," said Ron. "We'll be in Abergravy in a minute." Stan passed Harry's bed and disappeared up a narrow wooden staircase. Harry was still looking out of the window, feeling increasingly nervous. Ernie didn't seem to have mastered the use of his steering wheel. The night bus kept mounting the pavement, but it didn't hit anything. Lines of lampposts, mailboxes, and trash cans jumped out of the way as it approached and backed into position it had once passed. Stan came back downstairs, followed by a faintly green witch wrapped in a traveling cloak. "Here you go, Madam Marsh," said Stan happily as Ernst stomped on the brake and the bed slid a foot or so toward the front of the bus. Madam Marsh clamped a handkerchief to her mouth and tottered down the steps. Stan threw her bag out after her and rammed the door shut. There was another bang, and they were thundering down another narrow country lane, trees leaping out of their way. Harry wouldn't have been able to sleep even if he had been traveling on a bus that didn't keep banging loudly and jumping 100 miles at a time. His stomach churned as he fell back to wondering what was going to happen to him, and whether the Dursleys had managed to get Aunt Petunia off the ceiling yet. Stan had unfurled a copy of the Daily Prophet and was now reading with his tongue between his teeth. "Hey, Doris." Stan unfurled a copy of the Daily Prophet and was now reading with his tongue between his teeth. What's that? He looked strangely familiar. A large photograph of a sunken-faced man with a long, matted hair blinked slowly at Harry from the front page. It looked strangely familiar. "That man," Harry said, forgetting his troubles for a moment. "He was on the Muggle news." Stan turned to the front page and chuckled. "Sirius Black," he said, nodding. "Course he was on the Muggle news, Neville. Where have you been?" He gave a superior sort of chuckle at the blank look on Harry's face, removed the front page, and handed it to Harry. "You ought to read the paper once more, Neville." Harry held the paper up to the candlelight and read, "Black, still at large. Sirius Black, possibly the most infamous prisoner ever to be held in Aspirin Fortress, is still eluding capture," the Minister of Magic confirmed today. "We are doing all we can to recapture Black. said the Minister of Magic, Cornelius Fudge, this morning. And we begged the magical community to remain calm. Fudge had been criticized by some members of the International Federation of Warlocks for informing the Prime Minister for the crisis, the Muggle Prime Minister of the crisis. And of course, I got a cat meowing in the background. Shut up. Meow. Meow. Meow, meow. Not really. I had to. Don't you know? Said an irritable Fudge. Black is mad. He's a danger to anyone who crosses him. Oh, wow, that actually shut the cat up. I speak cat. I have the Prime Minister's assurance that he will not breathe a word of Black's true identity to anyone. Now let's face it, who would believe him if he did? While Muggles have been told Black is carrying a gun, the kind of metal one that Muggles use to kill each other, the magical community lives in fear of a massacre like that of 12 years ago, when Black murdered 13 people with a single curse. Harry looked into the shadowed eyes of Sirius Black, the only part of his sunken face that seemed alive. Harry had never met a vampire, but he had seen pictures of them in his Defense Against the Dark Arts classes. And Black, with his waxy white skin, looked just like one. Scary looking thing, ain't it? Said Sam, who had been watching Harry read. He murdered 13 people, said Harry, handing the page back to Stan. With one curse. Yep, said Stan. In front of witnesses and all. Broad daylight. Big trouble to cause, didn't it, Ernst? Arr, said Ernst darkly. Stan swiveled in his armchair, his hand on the back, the better to look at Harry. Black was a big supporter of you-know-who, he said. What, Voldemort? Said Harry, without thinking. Even Stan's pimples went white. Ern jerked the steering wheel so hard that a whole farmhouse had to jump aside to avoid the bus. You want to get tree? Yelped Stan. Just say his name for it. Sorry, said Harry hastily. Sorry, I forgot. Forgot? Said Stan weakly. Blimey, my ear's going that fast. My heart's going that fast. So Black was a supporter of you-know-who? Harry prompted apologetically. Yeah, said Stan, still rubbing his chest. Yeah, that's right. Very close to you-know-who, they say. Anyway, when little Harry Potter got the better of you-know-who, Harry nervously flattened his bangs down again. All you-know-who supporters were tracked down, wasn't they? Most of them knew it was all over, with you-know-who gone, and they came quiet, but not Sirius Black. I heard you thought you'd be second in command once you-know-who had taken over. Anyway, they cornered Black in the middle of the street full of muggles, and Black took out his wand and blasted half the street apart. And the wizards got it, and so did a dozen muggles who got in their way. Horrible, eh? You know what Black did then? Stan continued in a dramatic whisper. What? Harry said. Laughed, Stan said. Just stood there and laughed. And when reinforcements from the Ministry of Magic got there, he went with them quiet as any friend, still laughing his head off. 'Cause he's Mundian, Sam. Ain't he mad? If he weren't when he went to Azkaban, he will be now, said Ron in his slow voice. I'd blow myself up before I set foot in that place. Serves him right, mind you, after what he did. They had a job covering it up, didn't they, said Stan. All straight blown up and all the muggles dead. What was it they said happened there? Gas explosion, grunted Ernie. And now he's up, said Stan. examining the newspaper picture of Black's gaunt face again. Never been a break-up for Masking Man before, has there? Beats me how he did it. Frightening, eh? Mind, I don't fancy his chances against Azkaban guards there. Ernie suddenly shivered. Talk about something else, Stan. That's a good lad. Them Azkaban guards give him the catty-wobbles. Stan put the paper away reluctantly, and Harry leaned against the window of the night bus, feeling worse than ever. He couldn't help imagining what Stan might be telling his passengers in a few nights' time. And about that Attic Potter blew up his aunt. We had him here in the night bus, didn't we? He was trying to run for it. He, Harry, had broken wizard law just like Sirius Black. Was the inflating Aunt March had been enough to land him in Azkaban? Harry didn't know anything about the wizard prison, though everyone he'd ever heard speak of it did so in such a fearful tone. Hagrid, the Hogwarts gamekeeper, had spent 2 months there only last year. Harry wouldn't soon forget the look of terror on Hagrid's face when he had been told he was going, and Hagrid was one of the bravest people Harry knew. The night bus rolled through the darkness, scattering bushes. So about another 9 more pages to go, chat. After a while, Stan remembered that Harry had paid for hot chocolate, but poured it all over Harry's pillow when the bus had moved directly from Angelus to Bourbon. One by one, wizards and witches in dressing gowns and slippers descended from upper floors to leave the bus. They all looked very pleased to go. Finally, Harry was the only passenger left. Right then, Neville, said Stan. Whereabouts in London? Diagon Alley. Righto, said Stan. Oh, Diagon. Bang! They were thundering along Charing Cross Road. Harry sat up and watched buildings and benches squeezing themselves out of the next bus glare. The sky was getting a little brighter. He would ride low for a couple hours, go to Gringotts the moment open, and set off. Where? He didn't know. Ernest slammed on the brakes, and the night bus skidded to a halt in front of a small and shadowy-looking pub, the Leaky Cauldron, behind which lay the magical entrance to Diagon Alley. Thanks, Harry said to Ern. He jumped down the steps and helped Stan lower his trunk and Hedwig's cage onto the pavement. Well, bye then. But Stan wasn't paying attention. Still standing in the doorway to the bus, he was goggling at the shadowy entrance to the Leaky Cauldron. What's up, Bexa? There you are, Harry, said a voice. Before Harry could turn, he felt a hand on his shoulder. At the same time, Dan shouted, Blimey! Come here! I'm here! Harry looked up at the owner of the hand on his shoulder and felt a bucket full of ice cascade into his stomach. He had walked right into Cornelius Fudge, the Minister of Magic himself. Stan looked onto the pavement beside them. What did you call Neville, Minister? He said excitedly. Fudge, a portly little man in a long pinstriped cloak, looked cold and exhausted. Neville? He repeated frowning. This is Harry Potter. I knew it! Stan shouted gleefully. Guess who Neville is, huh? It's Harry Potter. I can see his scar. Yes, said Fudge testily. Well, I'm very glad the night bus picked Harry up, but he and I need to step inside the Leaky Cauldron now. Fudge increased the pressure on Harry's shoulder, and Harry found himself being steered inside the pub. A stooping figure bearing the lantern, and appeared through the door behind the bar. It was Tom, the wizened, toothless landlord. "You've got him, Minister," said Tom. "Will you be wanting anything? Beer, brandy?" "Perhaps a pot of tea," said Fudge, who still hadn't let go of Harry. There was a loud scraping and puffing from behind them, and Stan and Ern appeared, carrying Harry's trunk and Hedwig's cage, and looking around excitedly. "It can be dead as you were, Head Neville," said Stan, beaming at Harry, while Ernie's owl's face peered interestedly over Stan's shoulder. "And a private parlor, please, Tom," said Fudge pointedly. "Bye," Harry said miserably to Stan and Ernest. Tom beckoned Fudge toward the passage that led from the bar. "Bye, Neville," called Stan. Fudge marched Harry along the narrow passage after Tom's lantern, and then into a small parlor. Tom clicked his fingers. A fire burst into life in the grate, and he bowed himself out of the room. "Sit down, Hetty," said Fudge, indicating a chair by the fire. Harry sat down, feeling goosebumps rising in his arms despite the glow of the fire. Fudge took off his pinstriped cloak and tossed it aside, then hitched up the trousers of the bottle green suit, sat down opposite Harry. "I am Cornelius Fudge, Hetty, the Minister of Magic." Harry already knew this, of course. He had seen Fudge once before, but as he had been wearing his father's invisibility cloak at the time, Fudge wasn't to know that. Tom the innkeeper reappeared, wearing an apron over his nightshirt and bearing a tray of tea and crumpets. He placed the tray on a table between Fudge and Harry and left the parlor, closing the door behind him. "Well, Harry," said Fudge, pouring out the tea, "you've had us all a right flap, don't mind telling you, running away from your aunt and uncle's house like that. I'd start to think, but you're safe, and that's what matters." Fudge buttered himself a crumpet and pushed a plate toward Harry. "Eat, Harry. You look dead on your feet. Now then, you'll be pleased to hear that we have dealt with the unfortunate blowing up of Miss Marjorie Dursley. 2 members of the Accidental Magical Reversal Squad was dispatched to Privet Drive a few hours ago. Miss Dursley had been punctured and her memory has been modified. She has no recollection of the incident at all. So that's that, and no harm done." Fudge smiled at Harry over the rim of his teacup, rather like an uncle surveying a favorite nephew. Harry, who couldn't believe his ears, opened his mouth to speak, couldn't think of anything, and closed it again. "Ah, you're worrying about your reaction of your aunt and uncle," said Fudge. "Well, I don't deny they are extremely angry, Harry, but they are prepared to take you back next summer, as long as you stay at Hogwarts for the Christmas and Easter holidays." Harry unstuck his throat. "I always stay at Hogwarts for the Christmas and Easter holidays, and I don't ever want to go back to Privet Drive." Now, I'm sure you'll feel differently once you calm down," said Fudge in a worried tone. "They are your family, after all, and I'm sure you're fond of each other very deep down." It didn't occur to Harry to put Fudge right. He was still waiting to hear what was going to happen to him now. "So all that remains," said Fudge, now buttering himself a second crumpet, "is to decide where you're going to spend the last 3 weeks of your vacation. I suggest you take a room here at the Lake Cauldron and—" "Hang on," blurted Harry. "What about my punishment?" Fudge blinked. "Punishment? I broke the law. The decree for restriction of underage wizardry." Oh, my dear boy, we're not going to punish you for a little thing like that, cried Fudge, waving his crumpet impatiently. It was an accident. We don't send people to Azkaban just for blowing up their eyes. But this didn't tally at all with Harry's past dealings with the Ministry of Magic. Last year, I got an official warning just because a house elf smashed a pudding in my uncle's house, he told Fudge, frowning. The Ministry of Magic said we'd be expelled if there was any more magic there. Unless Harry thought I was deceiving him. Fudge was silently looking awkward. Circumstances change, Harry. We have to take into account the present climate. Surely you don't want to be expelled. Of course I don't, said Harry. Well, what's all the fuss about? Laughed Fudge. I have a crumpet, Harry. Well, I'll go and see if Tom's got a room for you. Fudge strode out of the parlor and Harry stared after him. There was something extremely odd going on. Why had Fudge been waiting for him at the leaky cauldron, if not to punish him for what he'd done? And now Harry came to think of it. Surely it wasn't unusual. It wasn't usual for the Minister of Magic himself to get involved in matters of underage magic. Fudge came back, accompanied by Tom the innkeeper. Room 11's free, Harry, said Fudge. I think you'll be very comfortable. Just one thing, and I'm sure you'll understand. I don't want you wandering off into Muggle London, all right? Keep to Diagon Alley, and you're to be back here before dark each night. Sure you'll understand. Tom will be keeping an eye on for me. Okay, said Harry slowly. But why? Don't want to lose you again, do we? Said Fudge with a hearty laugh. No, no. Best we know where you are. Fudge cleared his throat louder and picked up his pinstripe pipe. Well, I'll be off. Plenty to do, you know. Harry, have you had any luck with Black yet? Harry asked. Fudge's fingers slipped from the silver fastening of his cloak. What's that? Oh, you've heard. Well, no, not yet. It's only a matter of time. The Azkaban guards have never yet failed, and they are angrier than I've ever seen them. Fudge shuddered slightly. So, I'll say goodbye. He held out his hand, and Harry, shaking it, had a sudden idea. Minister, could I ask you something? Certainly, said Fudge with a smile. Well, 3rd years at Hogwarts are going to visit Hogsmeade, but my aunt and uncle didn't sign a permission form. Do you think you could? Fudge was looking uncomfortable. Ah, he said. No, no, I'm very sorry, Harry, but as I'm not your parent or guardian, but you're the Minister of Magic, said Harry eagerly. If you gave me permission. No, I'm sorry. Hey, but rules are rules, said Fudge slightly. Perhaps you'll be able to visit Hogsmeade next year. In fact, I think it's best if you don't. Yes, well, I'll be off. Enjoy your stay, Harry. Of the last smile and a shake of Harry's hand, Fudge left the room. Tom now moved forward, beaming at Harry. If you're following me, Mr. Potter, he said, I've already taken your things up. Harry followed Tom up a handsome wooden staircase to the door of the brass number 11 on it, which Tom unlocked and opened for him. Inside was a very comfortable-looking bed, some highly polished oak furniture, a cheerfully crackling fire, and, perched on top of the wardrobe, Hedwig! Harry gasped. The snowy owl clicked her beak and fluttered down onto Harry's arm. Very smart owl you've got there, chuckled Tom. Arrived about 5 minutes after you did. If there's anything you need, Mr. Potter, don't hesitate to ask. He gave another bow and left. Harry sat on his bed for a long time, absent-mindedly stroking Hedwig. Appreciate that, Exxon. Appreciate that. The sky outside the window is changing rapidly from deep velvety blue to cold steely gray, and then, slowly, to pink shot with gold. Harry could hardly believe that he'd left Privet Drive only a few hours ago, that he wasn't expelled, and that he was now facing 3 completely Jersey-free weeks. It's been a very weird night, Hedwig, he yawned, and, without even removing his glasses, he slumped back onto his pillows and fell asleep. Alright, chat, my ass is tired of reading. So thank you everybody for tuning in. And I will see you guys in the next stream. Daves-Raves out. Peace.